Hey everyone, it's Congressman Joaquin Castro of San Antonio, and we're here in Washington in session this week. And I wanted to talk to you all about a very disturbing story that has come into the news in the last few days. Y'all know that my staff and my staff does incredible work, and to be honest, they do the lion's share of the work both in Washington and in San Antonio. But we've been doing a lot of work in trying to get people freed from these private immigration prisons. And so we worked on helping get Liam Ramos and his dad freed from that Dilley trailer prison. Same thing with the Gámez-Cuellar family. Recently, the young boys, or high schoolers, who were in Mariachi, and we were able to help get them free from that Dilley trailer prison. And there are a lot of other cases that for people whose names have never made the news, people who've never been posted about in Facebook or X or Instagram or anywhere else, that my staff and I have also been working hard to help. And I know that's the case with other members of Congress as well. But there's a very disturbing case in the Rio Grande Valley out of Weslaco, Texas. And remember, the Gámez-Cuellar family was in McAllen. Well, Weslaco is a smaller town, but it is between McAllen on the west, and then the next largest town, if you go down that road, 83, is Harlingen in the Rio Grande Valley. So not too far from the U.S.-Mexico border. And there was a young father in his 30s, Juan Chavez Velasco, who's married to Stephanie Villarreal. And they have 3 children together, and the third was born not too long ago. And he was picked up, he's a DACA recipient. So he has lived in the United States since he was 8 years old, and now he's in his 30s. And he's got degrees in biology and clinical laboratory science, and also served on the front lines during COVID-19, during the pandemic. That was the case for a lot of DACA recipients. They were out there as healthcare workers, in grocery stores, as teachers. They were serving in the front lines when a lot of folks obviously were trying to stay home and stay away from being outside and being around other people. A lot of these folks were the healthcare workers, and just like he was. And so since 2012, he's been a DACA recipient. Well, they arrested him while he was on his way to visit his newborn, the baby, who'd been there, I think, about 12 days in the NICU. So this baby is in the NICU, and Juan is on his way to deliver milk, and they arrest him, and they take him in, and they have him at the Webb County Detention Center in Laredo. And so he is sitting in Laredo, Texas, in one of these private prisons, even though he was on DACA, and he reapplied in November of 2025. And so he has no criminal convictions, no criminal record, and has been obviously contributing to society, doing everything right, following the rules. And so let me tell you what's happening to a lot of DACA recipients. These are people who got vetted, who went through the process. If you've got a criminal record, you're not going to qualify for DACA. So he's one of these folks who has been on since 2012 and was hoping that there would be a comprehensive immigration reform bill, I'm sure, that Congress would pass so that he could get permanent legal status, and then I'm sure a path to citizenship, because he's been here since he was 8 years old. And unfortunately, as he reapplied for DACA, what the Trump administration has been doing is that they have been slow walking approving renewals. So they have intentionally been dragging their feet, hoping that DACA would expire for the particular person who's applying before it's renewed. And so what happened here is his DACA status, right, or his qualification for DACA was still active, but his DACA was expired while he was sitting in this Webb County Detention Center. And again, he had already applied in November. So you're talking about basically, 3-4 months that the administration had a chance to renew that application, renew that DACA status, and they didn't. They dragged their feet. They didn't decline it either. They just dragged their feet. But there are other folks who are on DACA who are experiencing the same thing, this very problem. And this is an intentional thing that the Trump administration is doing, forcing people into this kind of limbo that now makes them vulnerable to being arrested and taken in by ICE as well. And so I know that Vicente Gonzalez, who represents a big chunk of the Rio Grande Valley, and I understand Greg Casar are also working on this case very hard. But I mean, this is the kind of tragedy that I'm talking about. Is Donald Trump talked about getting the criminals out of here, deporting criminals. Well, here you have a father of three with degrees in biology and clinical laboratory science who was on the front lines during the pandemic, who was on his way to visit his newborn in the NICU, who's married to a U.S. citizen, who has 3 U.S. citizen kids, and is now sitting in a private prison at the Webb County Detention Center. And it was so heartbreaking because, reportedly, he has a son who visited him in that prison, and his son broke down crying when he saw his dad and asked him why his dad was being kept behind that glass. And that's the trauma. I've talked about the trauma of the kids that I visited in Dilley, but there's also a trauma for the kids who see their parents in that situation. And again, these are people who haven't committed any crime at all. He has no criminal record. He has not hurt anybody, any American in the country. And the Trump administration is treating him like this. And so I hope that you all will continue to speak up. The most powerful voice that we have is the voice of the American people. All of you who have reached out to members of Congress, reached out to the administration, whether it's Homeland Security or ICE, reached out to Core Civic. Core Civic runs the Webb County Detention Center. Those who have spoken up, your voice is incredibly powerful. And when Donald Trump talks about immigrants, oftentimes when he slanders them, he acts as though every single one is a serial killer. I hope that you'll remember the people like Juan Chavez Velasco, who've gotten caught up in this mass deportation dragnet that Donald Trump is carrying out. And this is why we have spoken up against this dragnet, against mass deportations. This is why, as a member of Congress, I have refused to give ICE more money. Through the so-called Big Beautiful Bill within the last 14 months, ICE got an extra $75 billion on top of their annual budget. So ICE is not struggling for money. They literally have more money than they can use. It would be very easy. Donald Trump has ignored appropriations, issues and has moved money around different departments. But all of a sudden, he's claiming that even though the Department of Homeland Security has an extra $150 billion, ICE has 75 of that, DHS has $150 billion of it, he's claiming that there's not enough money for TSA agents. Even though Democrats in the Senate have also said, yes, we'll appropriate additional money for TSA as long as we don't appropriate more money for ICE. Because it's not just DACA recipients they're going after. You've seen them go into the homes and businesses of U.S. citizens without a judicial warrant, barge into people's homes. You've seen the lawlessness out in the streets. Myself and others have tried to tell you about the brutality, the dehumanization behind the walls of places like Dilley and Stipsy, South Texas ICE Processing Center, in Pearsall, in Karnes, Texas. And so please, y'all, think about Juan and the others, these injustices, the fact that it hasn't been criminals that they're going after. It's been law-abiding people who have been great members of our society. This guy got here when he was 8 years old. He's like 35 years old now. He's got 3 U.S. citizen kids and a wife who's a U.S. citizen. He was going to deliver milk to this baby in the hospital, and they picked him up. And he's sitting in prison now, and his kids have to watch that because of the cruelty of Stephen Miller and Donald Trump and this administration. So please, you've seen what can happen when you use your voice. Please use it here. We'll talk soon. Take care, y'all.